So I recently faced something no homeowner should ever have to say out loud. 3 people trespassed onto my property and hurt my wife, all over a fence hinge. They called it a violation of HOA perimeter standards. I called it what it was, none of their business. Funny thing is, the only thing that got reinforced that day was the line they never should have crossed. Let me start from the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from today. You ever witness something so wrong, so close to home, that your mind just shuts down? Like your soul steps out for a breath and forgets to come back? That's what happened the morning those HOA enforcers rolled up to our ranch gate, and one of them struck my wife. I was 20 feet away, coffee in hand, frozen. It started with Leah's voice, calm, steady, but tight like a fuse about to burn out. "You're not allowed on our land without a warrant." I looked up from fixing a busted fence rail. The sun hadn't even cleared the ridge yet. That's when I saw them. 2 men, mirrored sunglasses, tactical polos stretched too tight. One had a clipboard. The other carried tension in his shoulders, arms twitching like he was waiting for a signal. "We're authorized to enforce code compliance," the short one said, tapping the badge on his chest. A badge that looked more like a prop than authority. "For a hinge?" Leah shot back. "You're threatening us over a fence hinge?" She stood her ground, boots planted, hands on her hips, hair pulled back tight. The taller one stepped forward, boots crunching gravel, voice low and firm. "Last warning, ma'am." Leah didn't waver. "Not resisting," she said. "Just disagreeing." Then it happened, sudden and brutal. His hand swung and the sound cracked through the air. Leah hit the ground hard. By the time I dropped the mug and ran, it was already over. Blood traced her lip. Her palm was scraped from the fall. She wasn't crying, and somehow that made it worse. "She got physical," the tall one said flatly. I responded with appropriate force. "Appropriate?" I whispered. My chest tightened, heart pounding like a drum. My fists clenched, but my body froze. Something deep in me locked up. Like I was 8 years old again, standing in a kitchen that smelled like burnt garlic, watching my father's anger fill the room. My mother flinched. A spoon hit the floor. He didn't have to yell, just looked at her in that way that made the air disappear. I said stop once. He turned and said, calm as a prayer, "See what you made me do." That silence has lived in my bones ever since. And now, decades later, when I needed to move, I couldn't. Leah sat up slowly. "You saw that?" she asked. Her voice trembled. I nodded but said nothing. "So why didn't you stop it?" Her words hit harder than the blow. I had no answer because the truth was worse than silence. Then a voice came from across the road. "Now hold on. I said you needed to fix your bylaws, not start a brawl." Walter, my neighbor, chaos magnet, doomsday prepper, beekeeper, and self-proclaimed drone pilot, stood shirtless on his porch, binoculars in one hand and a cereal bowl under the other arm. "Leah, you good?" he called out. She gave the smallest nod. "That's what I figured," he said. "You've always had a mean right hook, even when it's just words." The 2 men didn't respond. They just turned, walked to their ATV and left, like nothing had happened. Then came the SUV, dust rising, custom plates, HOA sticker shining like a warning label, and out stepped Karen. If Botox and bureaucracy had a mascot, it would have been her. Immaculate, unbothered, judgmental, she looked at Leah on the ground, me frozen, and said flatly, "I assume you'll want to file a complaint. The board's email is on the newsletter. Check your spam folder." Then she tapped her phone. "Had you addressed the prior fence violation?" "This could have been avoided from his porch," Walt muttered. "She makes a dictator look like a guidance counselor." Then louder, "Don't worry. I'll keep the police scanner on in case she calls in a drone strike." Karen didn't flinch, just drove off, calm as ever. Leah stood, one arm across her ribs. I stepped forward and she flinched, just slightly, but enough to cut deep. She turned and walked back to the house, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding in what little strength she had left. I stood there with nothing but an empty mug and a shame that settled into my bones. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch, bourbon by my boot, knife in my lap, not to use but because it was something sharp I could still control. The gravel where Leah fell still looked disturbed. I couldn't stop staring at it. Walt showed up around midnight, 2 beers in hand, ham radio under his arm. "I tapped into their HOA comms," he said. "They're calling you non-compliant. Want to hear the codes? I stayed quiet. He sat beside me, cracked a beer, and after a while said, "Sometimes it's not the punch that breaks you. It's the one you didn't block." Then he left. I stayed there until dawn, gripping that knife, wondering what happens when a protector waits too long to protect. They walked away like it was nothing. And I let them. But that mistake, they'd only get to make once. You'd think after a man hit my wife on our land, someone would face consequences. An arrest, a firing, a headline. But nothing happened. No knock on the door, no apology, no accountability. Just silence. 2 days later, we got a notice. Not through the mail. Hand-delivered by a teenager in a neon vest with HOA Courier written across it in Sharpie. He didn't make eye contact, just handed me the envelope and muttered, "Have a better day." Inside, violation of Section 18, unregistered livestock containment alteration. A $275 fine if the gate hinge wasn't fixed within 72 hours. Same fence, same hinge, same rage. Leah didn't say a word when she read it. She just placed it on the counter with surgical precision, turned and walked into the kitchen like her body was running on autopilot. She opened the fridge, grabbed an ice pack, and pressed it to her jaw. Still bruised, still healing. I followed her step for step, feeling like a stranger in my own home. "Leah, I don't..." Just one word. Controlled. Final. She opened the silverware drawer, moved a spoon, closed it. Opened it again, swapped 2 forks, closed it. Not angry, not sad, just distant, like she'd pressed pause on being human. Next, she started organizing the spice rack. Labels turned perfectly alphabetical, no skips, no chaos. The sound of the glass jars clinking was too loud and too empty at the same time. "You hungry?" I asked, just to say something. "I ate earlier." "I didn't see you eat." She turned and looked straight through me. "You didn't see a lot of things. That hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken." That night she moved into the guest room. She didn't say why, she didn't have to. She left the door open. Not as an invitation. As a warning. Meanwhile, Karen was thriving. She posted a full HOA update on Facebook titled, "Operation Neighborhood Order. Q2, Security Realignment. Effective immediately. All properties must submit a perimeter harmony review. Unauthorized gates, fencing, lighting, or even reflective livestock tags would be cited." Daily compliance patrols were now authorized. They weren't even pretending anymore. This wasn't about rules, it was about control. The next morning, I spotted 2 new enforcers. Tactical vests, clipboards, matching sunglasses. They circled the far end of our property from the easement. Didn't cross the line, just hovered, watched, wrote things down. One of them looked up and smiled, like we were neighbors at a barbecue. "Just checking setback buffer compliance," he said. "You're real close to the limit." "So are you," I replied. He chuckled, wrote something down, and walked off. Walt called them the HOA Gestapo. "They cited me for aesthetic obstruction via bunker porthole symmetry," he said, waving his ticket like a trophy. I told them the only thing obstructing aesthetics around here is Karen's soul. He dropped into a lawn chair beside me. "Reflective glass may cause community glare disruption," he read aloud. "Guess that means I'm shining too bright." I cracked a small smile. Barely. Later that night, I sat in the barn with a flashlight and a stack of every HOA notice we'd ever gotten. I read them one by one, searching for a pattern, a loophole, anything. But each paragraph felt like a trap disguised as legal language. Leah's silence echoed louder than any fine. I saw her pass by the window once. Didn't slow down. Didn't look in. Just walked, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. When I went inside, she was on the couch, braiding her hair with the kind of focus most people save for disarming bombs. "I need to fix this," I said. She didn't look up. Didn't stop. "No," she said softly. "You need to decide who you are, because right now I don't think you know." Then she picked up the remote and turned the volume up 1 notch, just enough to say, "Conversation over." I stood there staring at the back of her head, wondering how much of her I'd already lost. The next morning, Walt pulled up in his camo golf cart like he was prepping for the apocalypse but forgot it was Tuesday. A drone buzzed behind him like an angry hummingbird on caffeine. He held a cloudy jug under his arm. "I call it Combusta." Half kombucha, half fuel. Cleans the engine and the colon. You're joking. Best part? He grinned. HOA doesn't regulate internal combustion or intestinal, yet. I didn't laugh, and he noticed. They cited me again, he said, for weaponized composting. I told them it's just enthusiastic gardening. I didn't smile, just sat on the porch. After a pause, I asked, "You ever freeze?" He turned serious, eyes narrowing. "You mean like when something bad's about to happen and you just stop?" "Yeah," he nodded, looked toward the pasture. "See that dent in my truck fender? My ex put that there. Hammer, 2011. Missed my skull by 6 inches. I ducked. Didn't freeze, but I remember that half second where I didn't know what I'd do." He looked back at me. "That second never leaves you. But you don't have to live in it either." That line stuck. That night, another patrol hovered near our fence line. One of them stopped at the gate, shined a flashlight across the gravel. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just watched. I sat in the dark for hours, hand gripping the armrest so tight it creaked. The man who froze in the driveway was still inside me, but now he had company. Someone colder, someone older, someone waiting for permission to step out. I thought I was building a case. What I was really building was a line in the dirt, and they just crossed it. The morning after, everything felt wrong. The air had that eerie stillness before a storm, the kind you can't track on radar but feel in your chest. I was outside tightening the latch on the chicken coop, not because it needed fixing, but because my hands needed something to do. Then I saw Walt across the road waving both arms like he was directing air traffic. "You free?" he yelled. "Define free." "Free enough to learn the HOA just declared psychological war on you." He held up a hard drive like a preacher with a prophecy. "Got something you need to see." We headed down into his bunker. He called it the workshop, but it looked like a cross between a militia gift shop and suburban Area 51. Canned food labeled by mood, happy beans, crisis corn, divorce chili, solar panels, water filters, and a homemade leaf blower flamethrower, a squirrel skull wearing Ray-Bans, and on the wall a grid of laminated HOA violations displayed like hunting trophies. "Drone caught more than I expected," Walt said, booting up a laptop covered in stickers. "Don't tread on me and ask me about my ham radio." I was doing a perimeter scan when the punch went down. Didn't realize the mic was live. The screen flickered on. Framed Leah at the gate, arms crossed, strong posture, guarded eyes. 2 officers flanking her, Rye and his shadow, moving like men who wanted a fight but needed a reason. I enhanced the audio using a frequency isolator I built to eavesdrop on raccoon conspiracies. Walt said casually, "I'm not even going to ask." "Good, you shouldn't." He scrubbed forward, adjusted knobs like a submarine operator. Then we heard it, a faint voice buried in static. "Use the wife," someone said. "He'll snap." "He always does." My chest didn't rise. "Play that again." He did. "Use the wife. He'll snap." "He always does." Everything in me froze, except my fists. They clenched so tight I felt a tendon crack. "Walt, roll it back. Freeze on the guy who said that." He did. Zoomed in. Ray Dobbs. Same short beard, combat cut hair, eyes like burned out bulbs. "That's Ray Dobbs," I said. The name tasted like rust and gunpowder. "We served together, same unit." "Same mess." Walt turned toward me, serious for once. "And now he's working for Karen." I nodded. "He wasn't exactly the warm and fuzzy type, was he?" Walt asked. I didn't answer, because suddenly I wasn't in the bunker anymore. Afghanistan, Ghazni province. Dust in my teeth. Sweat behind my ears. A mission that wasn't supposed to be loud. Village compound. No weapons expected. It was supposed to be a meet, not a raid. Ray moved before the go order. Kicked the door. Yelled something that made the translator flinch. Pop, pop. 2 bodies hit the dirt. A woman, a child. The boy had been holding a shiny pot lid. Ray thought it was a weapon. It wasn't. Ray just stood there, breathing like he'd saved the world. No remorse, no blink. Later, I filed the report that ended his military career. Not out of revenge, but because someone had to say no, I blinked back in Walt's bunker. So this was never about fences or gate codes, I said. It was a trap set months ago, built just for me. Walt leaned back, arms crossed, chewing the end of a pen like it might answer him. They were counting on you to lose it, he said. That's what Rye does. Pushes until something breaks. Did Karen know who she hired, I asked. Either she knew and didn't care, I said, or she cared and liked it. Walt stared at the screen. Ray's face frozen mid-frame like it was daring me to blink. You think he's done? No. You gonna freeze again? I didn't answer. I hope not, he said finally. Hope's a lousy security system. I recommend tripwires. Or emotionally manipulative squirrels, I exhaled. Almost a laugh, almost. You have copies of the footage? Hard drive. Cloud. Flash drive hidden inside a taxidermy possum named Carl. Of course you do. Walt hit pause. Ray's face stayed frozen on the screen, silent but loud. You've been defending your perimeter, Walt said. But you've been under siege since day one. I didn't go home right away. I drove past the county line, down an old gravel road where the land felt wide enough to breathe without being watched. I parked. Got out. The wind hit me like it remembered who I was before all this. I leaned on the hood and tried to breathe. Really breathe, but in my head I still heard it use the wife. He'll snap. He always does. How long had this been building? Did Ray find me on his own? Or did Karen go looking? Did they trade stories over wine? Did she laugh about the boy with the pot lid? Every HOA fine. Every letter. Every patrol. It wasn't enforcement. It was bait. And I'd taken it. Hook, line, guilt. Back home the house was still. Leah's door closed. Light off. I stood outside it with my hand raised. I wanted to tell her everything. About Ray, about Ghazni, about how the ghosts I buried overseas had followed me home. But how do you confess that the danger she felt in her own driveway was danger I'd invited in? I dropped my hand and went outside instead. I sat on the porch, knife in my lap, bourbon bottle by my boot. Porch light off, a side-by-side rolled down the road. No headlights, no sound, just watching. Moments later, Walt's drone rose into the air, its green LED blinking like a guardian angel with propellers. My phone buzzed. A text from Walt, 10 p.m., HOA watching again. I didn't respond. Just stared out toward the fence line and whispered at once. Not as a threat, not as a promise. Just truth. Not again. They thought they knew how far I'd go. They were wrong. They thought they could use my past against me. But they forgot what happens when you wake the wrong part of it. There's a moment right before violence when the world forgets to breathe. The air stops moving. Animals fall silent. Even the wind holds its breath. That's what it felt like at sundown. The sky burned orange. The land went cold. I wasn't on the porch anymore. I was walking the fence line. No flashlight, no tools. Just instinct and that bad taste in my teeth. The horses were motionless, eyes wide. Never a good sign. I moved slow through the overgrown grass, past the feed bins, past the creek bed, toward the old north tank. Half buried, rarely used. Then I saw it. A scuffed boot mark in the dirt, fresh, pressed deep, like someone stopped suddenly. Or changed direction. Another print. A snapped branch. Fence wire bent at a strange angle. I crouched low, listening. Silence. But not clean silence. The kind that hunts. That's when I knew. They were already here. I rose, pivoted. Then a blow caught my jaw, spinning me halfway around. I stumbled, caught the gate, barely stayed upright. Before I could reset, another shadow hit me from the side. Pain shot through my ribs, air gone. World ringing. Evening, soldier, a voice said behind me, calm, confident. Ray Dobbs. He stepped into view like it was a casual walk, not an ambush. Funny seeing you without your clipboard, I spat, regaining balance. Figured we could skip the paperwork, he said, smirking. Karen sends her regards, my heart hammered. Blood in my mouth. Vision narrowing. The second guy, bigger, bulkier, dressed in black, and moved in. I dodged the first punch. Caught the glint of duct tape brass knuckles. Classy. He swung again. I ducked, grabbed a loose metal latch off the fence post and swung hard. Connected with his thigh. He grunted but stayed up. Ray smiled. You used to hit harder, Ellis. I rushed him. Shoulder to gut. We hit the dirt, dust, pain, ribs screaming. We rolled, fists, elbows. I caught him across the cheek. He drove his knee into my side. He reached for my throat. I slammed the latch into his hand. He screamed. Then the big one hit me from behind, dead weight. I went down hard. Fist to the back of my skull, stars. And then it hit. The memory. Ghazni. The boy. The woman. The flash of silver. Ray's voice shouting, they looked hostile. Mine shouting, stand down. Pop, pop, their bodies falling. My pen shaking that night as I wrote the report that ended his career. My eyes snapped open. Something in me turned off. Or maybe it finally turned on. I twisted under the weight, grabbed a jagged piece of broken gate frame, and swung it into the guy's shoulder. He roared. I rolled free, came up fast, drove an elbow into his throat. He dropped, wheezing. Ray turned to run. Bad move. I caught his collar, yanked him back into the mud. We hit hard. Fist, fist, jab, strike, fist again. His blood slicked my knuckles. Warm, heavy, wrong. This what you wanted? I shouted. This your plan? He didn't answer, just smiled, lips torn. Blood in his teeth, and that's when I felt it, and that presence. I turned. Leah, barefoot, standing in the field, pale, still. She looked at me, on top of another man, bloodied, fists raw, breathing hard. That's not the man who didn't stop them, she said quietly. Flat. Final. Then she turned and walked back toward the house. That line cut deeper than the brass knuckles. Ray lay below me, coughing. Told you, he rasped. You always break eventually. I stared down at him, then stood. Left him there in the dirt, gasping. I didn't look back. I limped across the pasture, pain trailing behind me like smoke. By the time I reached the porch, my body gave out. I dropped into the chair, silent. No crying, no cursing. Just staring at my hands, split knuckles, blood dried in the creases, fingers trembling. These weren't my hands. They belonged to someone else. Someone I swore I'd buried years ago. Inside, the lights clicked off one by one. Her door closed. The lock turned. I didn't know if it was goodbye or a barricade. Out on the road, a drone hovered, one red light blinking in the dark. Walter. He didn't text. Didn't speak. He just watched. He'd seen everything, and he didn't step in because he knew. I stayed on that porch until the blood on my shirt turned stiff, until my pulse slowed, until I could finally admit the truth I didn't want to face. Maybe I wasn't a protector anymore. Maybe I was something worse. They hadn't broken me, they'd just taken off the brakes. There's something dangerous about a man who stops reacting and starts planning. After that fight, after Leah looked at me like she didn't recognize the man who walked out of that field, I changed. I didn't sleep, didn't drink, didn't pray. I just sat there in the dark, listening, to the wind shift through the trees, to the gravel crack under phantom footsteps, to the hum of paranoia turning into focus. By sunrise, I wasn't tired. I was clear, not angry, not afraid, just cold, clean, surgical. I started with the perimeter, dug out the old ranch schematics, spread them across the barn table, soil depth, drainage lines, fencing, blind spots. Years ago, I'd drawn those maps for peace, for chores, repairs, coyote deterrence. Now it was a battlefield. I walked the fence line with new wire, steel core, trip-rigged, silent. Every 20 feet, a bottle cap chime. Every 50, one of Walt's homemade cameras, stitched together from drone parts and busted phones. Each angle covered a weakness. Each step made the land feel less like home and more like me. Walt showed up before noon, a box of sensors under one arm, a thermos in the other. The thermos smelled like molasses, gasoline, and spite. This looks fun, he said, eyeing the setup. You hunting intruders or mutant raccoons? Not hunting anything, I told him. Just making sure I know before they know I know. He paused, nodded once. Attaboy. We walked the north ridge, laid more cameras, buried a shock sensor inside an old hose nozzle. He handed me a custom monitor rigged from spare parts. Gets more accurate the more paranoid you are, he joked. So basically, it's your spirit animal. I didn't smile. Just grunted. That was enough. Around 3 p.m., a black side-by-side rolled past the main gate. Karen's boys. Ray was in the passenger seat, bruised but smiling. They didn't stop. Just rolled slow, measuring. I stepped into the driveway. Didn't wave. Didn't speak. Just watched. Ray looked up once and smiled. That same smile from before. The one that says, I know your breaking point better than you do. They kept driving. Leah watched too, arms crossed on the porch. Not scared, not angry, just calculating. Like she was deciding if I was still protecting us or just preparing to be alone. That night I stocked the barn, water, fuel, radios, dried food. Each bin labeled, organized. Not panic, precision, fallback strategy. If the house fell, I'd have a plan B. Walt helped reinforce the door with a steel bar salvaged from an old generator. We drilled motion sensors, pressure plates, thermal triggers. You're either building a bunker, he said, or prepping for the most aggressive HOA visit in history. I'm done prepping, I replied. Now I'm calibrating. He didn't smile. Just promise me one thing, he said, that you're still protecting someone and not rebuilding the man you swore you'd never be again. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence spoke loud enough. Leah found me in the barn later that night. I was laying out gear I hadn't touched in a decade. Knife, radio, gloves, boots with sand still stuck in the laces. Not armor, but not peace either. You planning to fight a war? She asked softly. Or survive one? I looked up. I'm planning to end one. She didn't argue. Didn't ask how. She just left, quiet as the first day we met. Before sundown, I walked to the flagpole. The old American flag fluttered there, faded and proud. I lowered it, folded it carefully, and raised a strip of black cloth I'd kept hidden for years. No symbols. No country. Just shadow. A signal only certain people would understand. Walt saw it from across the road. Whistled. That's the kind of thing that makes people Google you, he muttered. Later, I cleaned the wounds I could see and a few I couldn't. Looked in the mirror. I wasn't searching for fatigue anymore. I was looking for purpose. There's a look men get when they stop hoping for peace and start hunting for it. I saw it staring back at me, and for the first time in years I didn't look tired. I looked ready. That night I sat on the porch again, not to rest but to wait. Walt came by around 11, 2 beers and a flashlight in hand. We sat in silence, the kind that means something. So, he said finally, any thoughts on what happens if Ray comes back? He won't. That confident? Because if he does? I looked out at the fence line. Then he won't leave. Walt cracked his knuckles and sighed. You used to be scary in a quiet way. Now you're just scary. I didn't smile. Didn't flinch. Good. After he left, I watched the monitor. A red blip flickered, just a raccoon. But I didn't relax. Because somewhere out there, Ray was watching. Karen was scheming. And the next time anyone crossed my line, they wouldn't walk away. This ranch used to be a home. Now it's a message. And the next person who steps onto my land will understand every word of it. They didn't come at night. That would have been smart. They came at 4:37 p.m. on a Wednesday, like it was just another HOA visit. That's what gave them away. Karen never comes after dark. She needs sunlight, witnesses, control. She doesn't want to surprise you. She wants to own you. So I knew she was coming before I even saw the dust cloud. I was in the barn checking a trip line when the monitor buzzed, steady, heavy. 3 heat signatures. 1 small, 2 large. I tapped Walt's radio. We're live. Copy that, he replied. 2 heavies and a clipboard. That's how I knew I was about to get audited. Karen, fresh from the salon, marched up like she owned the deed to my bones. I stepped outside. Didn't run. Didn't speak. Didn't reach for a thing. Just waited. Let the gravel crackle beneath their boots. Ray led the approach. Black vest, visible limp. One eye still swollen from our last talk. Behind him, a new guy, young, broad, twitchy. The kind of man who mistakes volume for power. And then her, Karen. Blonde hair lacquered into a helmet. Polo shirt pressed like a uniform. Sunglasses wide enough to reflect her ego. Tablet clutched under her arm like a badge. She stopped 3 paces short of the gate. Mark Ellis, she announced. You are in violation of HOA Code Sections 12B, 14C, and Emergency Addendum 19F. You're not law enforcement, I said. No, she replied, her voice syrup and vinegar. But I'm the one who decides what happens next. Ray was already scanning the field, barn, porch, horses. His eyes flicked fast. He looked uneasy. Good. The rookie cracked his knuckles, all nerves and no awareness. Rookie mistake, I let the silence stretch. Let the air get thick. The wind shifted the tall grass. Then crunch. Ray's boot hit the second gatepost. A soft click beneath the gravel. He didn't notice. But I did, and so did the land, another click. Then chaos. From hidden speakers across the property came a storm of static and distorted noise. Walt's handiwork. Reversed alarms. Scrambled commands. Ghost voices from a world that didn't exist. The rookie jumped, hands up, eyes wide. Karen stumbled back, her tablet spinning into the dirt. Ray flinched, too slow. A net whipped up from the ground, barn pulley, fishing line counterweight. Simple, brutal ranch tech. It caught him mid-step and slammed him into the gravel. His knee bent wrong. He howled twice before the pain caught up. The rookie lunged forward. Bad move. Walt's voice crackled over the speaker. Incoming! A bucket launched from the barn loft and hit the man square in the chest. Cattle deterrent, fish oil, hot sauce, Walt's idea of humor. He slipped backward, landed on a tripwire. Flashbang flare, white light thunder. Then 3 more. Boom, boom, boom. Karen dropped to one knee, covering her ears. Ray rolled in the gravel, the rookie crawling toward the gate, soaked and screaming. I walked forward. Slow, controlled. Gravel crunching under my boots like punctuation marks. Ray looked up, dazed, reaching toward his vest. I pressed a boot to his chest. You crossed the line, I said. You set a trap, he spat. No, I replied. I built a boundary. You chose to ignore it. Karen staggered upright, sunglasses gone, eyes wide. This is illegal, she shouted. So was punching my wife. She froze, voice cracking. This is still HOA land. You're still under our... Not anymore, I cut in. You stepped off your yard. Now you're on mine. She blinked once, then turned fast, almost tripping. The rookie didn't wait, just ran, slipping again in the slick mess. Walt climbed down from the barn loft, cattle prod in one hand, spark launcher in the other. Y'all good? He called. Never better, I said. We watched them limp away like trespassers in their own fairy tale. Ray leaned hard on the rookie. Karen didn't speak, didn't look back, just vanished in a cloud of dust and humiliation. Inside the house, Leah had seen everything from the kitchen window. Her hands were still. Her face unreadable. She didn't ask, "What did you rig?" Or, "How did you know how to do that?" She just looked at my hands, my boots, the stains across my shirt, paint, fish oil, sweat, but it looked like blood. You didn't freeze, she said quietly. No, I answered. But you didn't blink either. She studied me for a long moment, like she was trying to remember who I used to be and couldn't. Then she turned, walked away, and closed the door. Not slammed, not locked, just closed. The way someone closes a chapter or a vault. I stood there, hands trembling, chest tight. Not from fear, from realization. What I'd built wasn't revenge. It was a warning, and not just to them, to me. Karen thought I was the problem. Now she knew I was the consequence. That was her warning shot. The next one wouldn't be loud. It would be final. I hadn't lost control. I'd just given it a place to live. And now it had a home. I thought the fight was over. After the trap. After Karen ran off looking like she'd lost a mud wrestling match in a seafood pit. I thought that was the finish line. I was wrong. They weren't retreating. They were reloading. The knock came at 6:12 a.m. Walt, thermos, tablet, and a look I hadn't seen since Kandahar. We've got a problem, he said. And it's not a bad Yelp review. He dropped the tablet on the table like it was live ordnance. No words, just a video. I pressed play. The footage was shaky but clear. Ray tangled in the net. Karen screaming. Me standing over him, boot on his chest, mouth saying, "You crossed the line. No lead up. No trespass. No bruises on Leah. Just the flash, the smoke, and me looking like a warlord in a cornfield." My jaw locked. My pulse thundered in my ears. "They stripped the context," I said. "Made me the villain." "Yeah," Walt muttered. "And it's working." He opened Facebook, local news, HOA blogs. Rancher Rambo. Rural extremist. Why unregulated homeowners are dangerous. "They're not fighting you anymore," Walt said. "They're filming you. This is optics warfare. You think I don't know that? Just making sure you remember." 2 hours later, a car pulled up. Courier, official envelope. Embossed seal. Trouble disguised as paperwork. Whitaker, Griggs & Bell. A firm that charges by the breath. I tore it open. Read aloud. Violation of Code 32C. Aggravated trespass deterrence. Hostile intent toward HOA representatives. Each line cut deeper. $75,000 in damages. Civil action pending. Court date locked and stamped. I dropped the paper like it was poison. "They're trying to bankrupt me," I said. Walt didn't respond. He didn't have to. He sat on the porch rail watching the horizon. "We could fight it digitally," he said. "Raw footage, timestamps, everything. I can push it through a dozen groups tonight." "And when they edit that too?" I asked. "You let them control the mic, you already lost." He didn't argue. Leah came in near dusk. Silent. watching the same 5 seconds replay on screen. Ray in the dirt, my boot on his chest. You set that trap, she said quietly. I protected my land, did you? She asked. Or did you bait them into stepping where you wanted? I stood there, no defense, no answer. Just the sound of my heartbeat filling the space between us. They assaulted you, and now the world thinks you assaulted them. Her voice cracked, rising with anger and disbelief. I'm stuck between the man who let it happen and the man who planned it too well. I couldn't respond. That line hit too close. She stepped back, eyes sharp. You're not the man I married. Then what am I asked. I don't know, she said, but whoever you are now, you scare me more than they do. She left, this time slamming the door. That night I stayed on the porch. No drink, no rifle, just silence. Down the road, half a mile away, a car idled. Headlights off, engine running. It crept forward 5 feet, stopped again. Not HOA, not police, someone else. I stood, holding only a flashlight. 1 flash, 2, 3, the code Walt and I used, nothing. Then 1 return flash from the car. They were watching. But now I was too. They didn't come to fight. They came to frame. They took the camera. Now I'd take the script. They thought this was over. They forgot who finishes wars. They thought they broke me. Karen with her press releases, Ray with his footage, the neighbors with their gossip. They thought they turned me into a punchline. But I don't win by hitting back. I win by removing their ability to hit at all. I didn't post online. Didn't rant. Didn't beg. I built a case, methodical, documented, airtight. And this time I wasn't alone. Walt handed me a thumb drive no bigger than a coin. Everything, he said. Raw files, timestamps, coordinates. Even a few things they won't want public. I sent it to Mia, Leah's cousin, a civil rights attorney with a reputation for dismantling corruption. We hadn't spoken since the wedding. No explanations, no favors. Just her reply. Send the file. 10 minutes later, a formal complaint hit my inbox, sharp enough to cut steel. We didn't go public. We went legal. Filed a preemptive countersuit before their HOA hearing ever began. 4 key charges: unlawful trespass, impersonating law enforcement, use of force under false authority, and defamation through edited materials. Attached evidence: drone footage, hospital records, witness statements, and internal HOA documents, courtesy of someone who clearly hated Karen more than I did. A week later, I walked into county court beside Mia, clean boots. No words. Karen's team arrived with 3 lawyers and a clicky pen they never stopped using. The judge barely let them speak. He read our claim, watched 30 seconds of footage, and frowned. This should have never reached this courtroom, he said before signing a permanent injunction. Restraining orders. Cease and desist notices. Every HOA enforcement mechanism frozen. They couldn't send fines. They couldn't send people. They couldn't send anything. 3 days later, Karen resigned, not just from the HOA, but from the neighborhood entirely. She sold her house quietly. No goodbye emails. Just a moving van and a for sale sign that toppled in the wind. Her last message read, "You've made your point. Wrong. I didn't make a point. I made a boundary, and now they finally knew better than to cross it." Ray disappeared, his name erased from the HOA site. When Walt called the compliance line, no one answered. "Looks like the HOA's got a staffing shortage," he said, sipping from his thermos labeled emergency juice. We didn't brag, didn't gloat, just reset the ranch. Took down the tripwires, removed the speakers, raised the old American flag again. Normal, but not the same. That evening, Walt sat beside me on the porch. "You used to freeze," he said. "Now you draw the line and make sure no one forgets where it is." "That's supposed to be comforting?" I asked. "Nah," he said. "Just accurate." We drank in silence. Leah came home later. She stood in the doorway, watching me for a long time before stepping outside. Not close, not far, just there. "Do you ever miss who you were before all this?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said no. I think I finally became who I was meant to be. She didn't argue, didn't leave. That was enough. I didn't need revenge. I needed clarity, order. Not over them, over me, and now they don't fear me because I fight. They fear me because I stopped fighting and still won.